To the third book sandwich din season. Today, our local author, Anthony Pucci, will discuss his experiences with the writing process. Anthony has been writing mystery novels since he retired 43 years ago as an educator. His first Michael Bishop mystery, which is called Outline for Murder, appeared in 2015. His 10th novel, Murder on the Grand Canal, will be published this spring. Anthony will discuss the writing process, his experiences with self-publishing, and the role of artificial intelligence in the creation of audiobooks. Signed copies of his books are available for purchase over here. Before we begin, I'd like to ask, are there any people who have not filled out the survey yet? Please keep your hand up and you'll get a copy. And please fill it out and deposit in my elegant box over here on the table. Thank you.
Right.
And without further delay, Anthony Pucci.
Okay, how are we doing? Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Thank you. I really appreciate your coming out today. I have to apologize for my voice. It doesn't have the greatest quality anymore. But that led me to writing books. And I can explain how that happened. I started losing my voice. I taught for 43 years. So things happen, and I lost my voice. It was really sort of the worst laryngitis that you could imagine. And the doctors checked everything out, and it wasn't anything serious, but they said, you need to stop talking. Which, for a teacher, is kind of hard to do. And I did actually take 2 weeks off, which is probably longer than I'd ever been out in 43 years. I hated to miss a day. So my voice sort of came back. And I went into the classroom, lost it again. And so I asked for a microphone. And just like the ones that they were trying to give me, a little pack that you put on your, just like a football ref, to have the microphone turned on when I wanted to talk, and turn it off so that people couldn't hear me breathing or rustling my shirt or whatever. And the batteries would die every half an hour, and I'd have to send someone out to get batteries. My voice was terrible, but I loved teaching, and I was stubborn, so I did that for a year, and I finally, and the kids were great, putting up with that awful voice of mine. But I finally decided that was sort of a message. It was time to retire, and. I remember telling Sister Edwina, some of you might know, remember Sister Edwina taught at Notre Dame. She was a lovely lady. She was in her mid-90s at the time. She was still tutoring. My daughter was her last student, teaching French 5, one-on-one, with this 95-year-old nun. And I told her that I was going to retire. And she said, well, if you can't talk, you can write. And I went home and I thought about that. And then, my wife read a lot of mystery novels. I didn't. I didn't have time. I was always reading student papers, or reading books that I was going to be teaching. And she said, these mystery novels, I bet you could do that. And so I was taking a shower, and I just came up with an idea of something that would happen, like there's a victim, and I came up with a little scenario of who might have done it. And I sat down at my laptop and I wrote a chapter, and I showed it to my wife, who's well-versed in mysteries, and she said, keep going. So I did, and I did. And now I've just completed my 10th book, when I think about it, that's over 500,000 words that I didn't know I had, and it's kind of it's been a good lesson in realizing that sometimes if you just try something, you'll find that you can do it. But it doesn't get done by itself. You have to actually sit down and make it happen. So that's how my writing career started. I had really no idea, other than this vague thing about somebody getting killed. And I know some writers block out the story. They spend weeks outlining, and they've got every chapter kind of figured out. They talk about, they mentioned, J.K. Rowling with the Harry Potter books. And she had them all sort of mapped out. That is the way I could do it. And so I would just move along. The chapters are fairly short, and within the chapters there are breaks, little segments, and that's how I worked my way through the book. I would write a scene, maybe descriptive or maybe a dialogue, and then I'd stop, go for a walk, mow the lawn, and figure out what has to come next. And sometimes it took me a while to figure it out, and sometimes it would come to me, and then I could add something to the book. Sit down, add another little section. Some people have said, well, you don't really know who did it. They're whodunits, right? They don't really know who did it. Well, that's the whole idea. You're not supposed to know who did it. But the interesting thing is that I don't know who did it at the beginning, necessarily. And so I'll build in the possibility that 4 or 5 people could have done it. And then at some point I have to decide, okay, then you got to get serious now, like who really did it. But that's one of the, that's part of the fun. It is fun to do it because you create something that wasn't there before. And hopefully other people, find that enjoyable. It's an escape. It's not serious literature, although I try to build in some values, some things to make you think. But it's an escape. And in this world today, an escape for a couple of hours might not be a bad idea. So when I started, writing a mystery novel, I had to decide who was going to be the detective. And it's been consistent through all of the books. His name is Michael Bishop. And I always told my students, several of whom are here, incidentally, thank you very much for coming, although don't take notes. When I was teaching, if they didn't take notes, I would be upset. But in this context, if you start taking notes, you're going to make me nervous. So don't take notes. But I had to decide about this Michael Bishop, who is he going to be? And I always told my students, write about what you know. So I made the detective an English teacher. Like, what do you know? That's what I know. That's what I did. And so, in a number of the books, there are references to literature. And someone asked me, have you read all those books that you referred to? I said, well, yeah, I have, like more than once. And there are lessons in those books. There's value in them. And so I incorporate them in the books, not too heavily, but here and there. And not just as a filler, because I try to tie the lesson that's in the book to what's going on in the story. I hope the readers pick that up, that they're not there in a just kind of a frivolous way. And there are a few excerpts I could read if we have time, or if I start to see people falling asleep. I could read a few examples of those kinds of things that I'm talking about using the literature. So they're cozy mysteries. I don't know if you're familiar with that term, cozy mystery. What's a cozy mystery? Basically, it's a novel that does not contain graphic violence, does not contain descriptions of sex scenes, that sort of thing, does not have vulgar language. It's like just like a clean book, an easy read. But again, hopefully to not only entertain and who did it and all that, but also to get you to think a little bit about human nature, because that's what literature is all about. It's a reflection of human nature. That's why I taught English. Because there were lessons there about human nature, you learn about people, you learn about other people, you learn about what motivates us, you learn about the human heart, and some of the things that we find in the human heart that are difficult to deal with. And you find a way, literature is a way to cope. You find the honey of peace sometimes in those words. And so that's what I did. I put that in there. And there's, in addition to the main plot of, somebody gets killed and who did it, there's like a subplot usually. There's something else going on. There's something going on in his personal life. And you kind of work that out as well. And And hopefully it all kind of ties together at the end, if I did it right. Something I'd like to mention about these books, and I have them there in order, Outline and Murder being the first one. They're independent stories, so that you could pick up any one of them and have a complete experience. It's a self-contained story. But if you read them in order, there is some merit to it, in the sense that you follow the development of the character, the main characters anyway. Like Michael Bishop, he's in all of them. And I think there's a little of me, in Michael Bishop, as you would expect. And people that know me maybe see that. But if you don't, it doesn't make any difference. If you read the stories in order, you'll see some characters who are recurring characters. They're in all the stories. Other characters are in and out. Obviously, there's one that's out in every book. And so you can sort of like run out of people. I based it in the school. That's where he was. That's where Michael Bishop was all those years. And you kind of run out of people to kill off. And so that's why the fourth book, Murder on the Marginal Way, is based in Maine. The Marginal Way is a famous cliff walk in Ogunquit, Maine. It's a beautiful place. We've been lucky enough to go there many times. And I thought, I think I'm going to base the book in Ogunquit, Maine. And so he goes to Maine, and he goes to check into a hotel, and the receptionist is a former student. And things like that happen to me, after you've taught several thousand students along the way. You do meet people in different places. And I have to tell you this little side story. It has nothing to do with the writing process, but just bear with me. My wife and I are going up to Ogunquit fairly soon. Again, we haven't been for a while, but we like to stay at the same place. And it's called the Beachmere Inn. It's not an advertisement, for Beachmere Inn. But, and in the book, I called it the Belvedere Inn, because I didn't want, I don't know if they'd be upset. And so I called up recently, and we like to stay in the same room in this old Victorian home, big place, right on the Marginal Way, beautiful spot, and can't afford to go during peak season, and of course peak season, like everybody's there, so we like to go in the off season. And so I was asking the lady on the phone, about dates when we find, like consecutive days. But in that room, want to be in that room, because it has a great view of the Marginal Way and the beach. And she found some dates and said, okay, going to put a deposit down over the phone. And she said, what's your name? And I said, last name is Pucci. She said, Anthony? I said, yes. She said, I'm reading your book. So we had a good laugh over that. She said, that means one of my coworkers got killed. I said, well, not technically, it was a Belvedere, not the Beachmere. But apparently someone had been reading the book up there and had given it to this woman, and she was reading it. And so I thought it was kind of interesting. And you know, actually, one of the things that I could mention too, when I was changing names, like changed Beechmere to Belvedere, I didn't want to use Elmira when I started. It's not me, you know, this is not about me. It's fiction. Although I have a hard time convincing some people of that. It's fiction. Because students was like, you know, I don't know if am I in that book? Actually, I had someone send me a message, and they actually referred to a particular student and a particular character in one of the books. And said, no, I think it had never occurred to me. Never occurred to me. But once that person said that, I could see it, you know, that you know, something there, something was there. But you know, I didn't want to use Elmira, so I used Groveland. And in the first book, you won't find any references to this area other than I'll just say vaguely upstate New York. But then, as I moved along, you know, from year to year, I started thinking, well, why not include references to local places? And so I started putting in references to restaurants and you know, roads and towns that would be familiar to you folks. And I think Michael Bishop has changed a little bit over the years, probably because you know, you'd think after 10 that I'm starting to figure it out, I'm getting the hang of it. Sometimes I really don't want to go back and read the first one, because you know, they say throw those first things away, you know. But I don't want to do that. And you know, in my writing process, I was telling you how I just kind of go through and do it as it comes. Don't really know where it's going, and just go with it, and just be faithful to it. And what I've done more recently, in the last several books, when I start, that day that I start, I commit to writing every day until it's done. Every day. Christmas, whatever, you can find an hour, or whatever it takes. And I found that works. Just to be faithful to it, and actually, in a way, to get rid of it. Because once I start writing about a book, I mean, that world, it's fictional world, but it's whirling around in my head. Even when I'm not writing, and I don't want to be thinking about it, like I'm trying to go to sleep. And it's like talking to me. And I'm writing dialogue in my head. You know, I'm dreaming. I don't even know which it is. But I never remember it in the morning. But so in a way, writing it gets it out, and it's a tremendous relief to actually finish the book, even though there's a lot of work left in terms of going over it and trying to improve it. And I have to tell you that in some ways, once the writing's done, then the really hard part starts. Because, well, I have to go through, and of course I've written it on a laptop. And I like to have a book in my hands, but there's no book. And so what I do is print it out. And it doesn't look like the books, but I print it out, use a 3-hole punch, get it in a binder, and then sit down and kind of read it with my good red pen, as people will have, panic attacks thinking about me with my red pen. Or I do it to myself. And it's painful to see the errors. And of course, I never did learn to type. So that's a disadvantage. I use the hunt and poke method of typing like this. And so you go slowly and you make mistakes. And of course, I was great at seeing other people's mistakes. I'm sure people can be witness to that. And bam, that would circle that one. My own mistakes tend not to see them sometimes. And I think that's true, when we're writing, we'll think, yeah, that word's there, for sure. Because in your mind you think it's there, but it's not there. Well, that gets into something else, but so I clean it up, and then I don't have an agent. I don't have a publisher. Come on, I think there's something like 4 million books are published every year. So I'm not gonna be on the New York Times bestseller list. I get that. So how do you get it out there? You self-publish. And Amazon. Amazon, there are a lot of opinions about Amazon, but they do allow you to put your books up there at no cost, which is just about in my price range. So how do you do it? Well, I had to go to school, basically. I had to teach myself how to do it. An ebook. What's an ebook? I've never read an ebook. But if you want to get it on the market, you gotta have an ebook. And so what does that mean? That means you need to have, it has to be in a certain format. You have to have a table of contents. You have to highlight every chapter. In this most recent book, there are 45 chapters. You have to bookmark them. You have to hyperlink them. I don't know what that means. So I'm looking at YouTube videos, trying to figure out, how do you do this? Because if you don't do it right, they don't accept it. And incidentally, so I had this video. This British woman did this YouTube video, and she was explaining this whole process. It's very technical, very detailed, but what it enables somebody to do who's on a Kindle or an iPad or even on your phone, anywhere you can download it, you can just click on the chapter. Let's say you're on chapter 35. You want to go back to the beginning table of contents, boom, that's all you do, click, and go back. You want to go to chapter 41, boom, that's all you have to do. You have to figure out how to do it. So this YouTube video showed me how to do it. And I'm maybe not the most patient person in the world. And this is frustrating stuff for me. But you have to do it. And what did I do? I saved that video on my computer. Because I only do this once a year. So when the next book comes out, I go back to that lady with the YouTube video, and I watch it, and I say, I can do this. And I do it. And this time, for the 10th book, I went back to my bookmark, and I clicked on it, and it says, this YouTube video is no longer available. Oh. What? I never heard of this. How could a YouTube video disappear? It had to be a mistake. It was gone. I don't know what happened. I hope she's all right. But I was in big trouble because without her, I didn't know how to do it. And so I looked at about 20 other YouTube videos, and none of them were the same. They're saying different things. Some of them were talking in a language that was hard for me to understand. It was sort of English, but very difficult to follow. And I was really kind of losing heart there for a while. And then I found one that was sort of similar. I could almost hear that woman's voice. I can still hear her voice. And so I did it. I finally got it. And then you upload it to Amazon. And you have to do all this stuff, fill out, answer all these questions. Then there's the point where you upload your text, and you have to have a cover. Oh, that's interesting. The covers. The covers are the only things I didn't do. As far as the book itself, I'm the author, I'm the editor, I'm the typist, I'm the proofreader, and everything. Except I couldn't do the cover, because you have to put print on an image. And that was beyond me. And maybe there wasn't a YouTube video on that at the time. I never looked. But there's a place on the internet called Fiverr. Like things were $5. The people would do things for $5. Like, I'll make the cover for your book for $5. So I found this lady, and I said, okay. And she sends me to this site on the internet where there's like thousands of images. Pick any image you want. Tell her what image you've chosen. Tell her what text you want on the book. The title, the author, all that stuff. And she'll do it. And she sends you the file. And then you upload that to Amazon. Like it doesn't matter that I didn't do it. They don't care. I've got a cover. An ebook needs a cover. Even though you have nothing, ebook needs a cover. Of course, when I did this one, it was $35. There's nothing on there for $5 anymore. You can check that website. But anyway, so I upload my ebook, and and then it takes a few minutes as they're thinking, and they're processing this, and then they say it's ready to preview. Okay, this is the moment. See, so you download it to your computer, and you can see what it's going to look like. You say, wait a minute, this doesn't look right. What do I got to do? So then that's a whole nother dilemma. And so you finally get it so that it's acceptable. Because they'll point out all the errors. They'll say, there it is, page 76, page 81. They tell you. They don't tell you how to fix it. They tell you what the problem is. So then you've got the ebook. Well, now you need a paperback. Okay. Can't use the same file. Because this doesn't have, you can't get a book and press on it, say, whoa, I want to move to another page. That's not going to work. So that's a totally different file. Okay. I upload a Word document, and it comes back and says, all these words are in the gutter. What are you talking about, in the gutter? You open a book, there's a gutter in the middle. My words were in the gutter. So they're saying, you can't print that book because it's not right. And, the way, if it's on the left, if the words are on the left side of the page, that's got its own little set of margin requirements. If it's on the right, it's got its different set of margin requirements. Otherwise, you go in the gutter, or you go off the page. Where are the page numbers? They're gone. They're off the page. So I'm surprised, actually, I continued to do this to myself. Because it really is a frustrating experience. Although I have to say, for the 10th book, it took me 10 times. When I submitted that document and pressed for the preview. Came back and it said no errors. Maybe I should stop at 10, That doesn't mean there aren't errors in the book, but there was nothing in the channel, there was nothing like off in space somewhere that I lost stuff. So it's a process. I mean, and that's tough. And actually, this is the 10th book, Murder on the Grand Canal, a Michael Bishop mystery. And I'm sure you can't see it, but there's a big band across here. Amazon is very concerned that I might sell this book because it says, not for resale, not for resale, not for resale, all over, even in the back. They're gonna make sure I don't sell this book. It's a proof copy. And I don't think that was available when I started. Amazon's come a long way too, in their abilities with the self-publishing. But now they offer you a chance to get a proof copy. And that's very humbling, because when I read the book, and I like reading a book, having it in my hands, and I say, oh my gosh, there's an error. I left out a word. I mistyped a word. How could that happen? I looked at it 100 times, but it happens. And I'm sure all my students would be gratified to know that I make lots of mistakes. I suppose they just were reluctant to tell me. I don't know, but you're certainly welcome to do that. So it gives me a chance then to go back and to fix it. And so this book actually won't come out until the beginning of June. And there are reasons for that too. But I wanted to talk a little bit about audiobooks. And this wasn't available at the beginning. It was only recently that they sent me a message and said, we're going to try something. We're going to try audiobooks. You're eligible to have an audiobook. I've never listened to an audiobook. I have no interest in doing it. But actually people have sent me messages and said, I've got a long commute every day. I would love to hear the books, rather than read them. Okay. So how do you make an audiobook? So I started with the first book, of course. And I say, okay, I'm ready to start an audiobook. And what happens? On my laptop, the text starts to appear. Chapter 1. And there were 8 voices that you could choose from. It's artificial intelligence. I mean, can you imagine me reading these books? 500,000 words? I have no voice. So it's not me. Artificial intelligence. So I picked a voice. It's a nice voice. I thought, reasonable. And so she starts reading the book. And what am I doing? I'm watching this little spacer highlight every word as she speaks it. Every word. And she mispronounces words. And so you can stop. Say, stop that. That's not what I want. And for example, she would say, a hat, instead of a hat. So I stop. And then you have a chance to fix it. So you can type something. So I ended up having to type UH hat. Oh. It still shows A on the text, but she doesn't say A anymore. She says a hat. In one of the books, I have a character, Manzi, M-A-N-Z-Y, student's last name. And she'd say, Manzi. Stop. It's not Manzi. It's Manzi. How can I get her to say Manzi? So it's supposed to be M-A-N-Z-I. Well, obviously that didn't work. So I tried M-A-N-Z-E-E. And then she said, Manzi. That's not right. So then I tried M-A-N-Z-E-Y. And she said, Manzi. You got it. You got it. And then there's an option to say, I'll say it the way you want every time I come to the word Manzi. So I can click that, and automatically it all changed. So that was good. So the audiobook takes a long time because you have to listen to every word and stop her and say, you're not saying that right. And then emphasis. Well, as one of my colleagues used to say, they put the emphasis on the wrong syllable. And that's hard to fix. That's hard to fix. And so if you ever hear one of the audiobooks, you say, what's the matter with him? That's really not right. It's not me, it's artificial intelligence, and it's not perfect. So sometimes the emphasis is in the wrong place. You do the best you can. What I have noticed for the 10th book, the audiobooks take so long, and I'd rather write than listen to audiobooks. But I think I'm doing the 7th one now. And like Amazon's like moving on, they've got like 25 voices you can pick from. I'm sticking with my lady. I like that lady, even though she makes mistakes. We've gotten to be friends. So I'm sticking with the same voice. And but what I've noticed is she's getting smarter. I don't have to stop her as often and say, wait a minute, that's not right. She's getting it. She's like a student who's really learning. And it's scary because there's nobody there. And the emphasis, a lot of the times, they get the emphasis from the punctuation. Maybe put an exclamation point. Yeah, they're going to pick up on that. Put a question mark. Lift their voice. Yeah, they get it to some extent, and that's improving. So I think it's kind of an interesting thing. And one of the benefits from hearing it, and I'm following along on the computer because that thing is moving. I think I know why they call them cursors. Because I think I've cursed most of the saints at one point or another. When I see these mistakes, they point them out. But that cursor's moving along, so I'm hearing it, and I'm looking at it, I think, wait a minute, she just skipped a word. Did she make a mistake? And I look at the book. I said, no, it was me. I made the mistake. It's there. And so one of the things I can do, even listening to the 7th book and saying, there's a word missing, I can go back now and take down that file with the mistake, put up another file, and then you never know the difference. Although people who bought early have really maybe valuable copies because they have evidence of all my mistakes. And we don't often get a chance to fix our mistakes. But audiobooks has given me that chance. So I've been talking for a long time, and I don't know how long this is supposed to go. But I wanted to give you a chance to ask questions, because really, that's how I taught. I asked, if we were going to discuss a book, I'd have the book, and I'd go like this, and I'd say, what do you want to talk about? Right? What do you want to talk about? Because I read it. I mean, it's like, what do you want to know? And we'll talk about that. And we could start on the first page. We could start on the last page. Sometimes I would say, well, let's just start here. Doesn't matter. If it's a good book, you can get anywhere. You can get anywhere from any place in the book. Otherwise, it's not that good. Everything's got to tie together. So it doesn't matter where you start. So anyway, it was all like, what do you want to know? So what do you want to know? Yes.
So when you got the book, you proved it. Now Amazon produces them one at a time. Is there order?
Yes. They're print on demand is what they're called. Now the ebooks, they're just like lightning. Right now you can pre-order the 10th book, and it will arrive miraculously on your device on June 3rd, because that's the date I put. The paperback is not available yet, but I might open it up sooner. But if you were to order a book individually, I would say it would come in several days. And actually I've had readers get their books before me. Because like I might order 10, because I'm going to give them out or do whatever, sell them, whatever. So you order 10, you're on wait maybe 3-4 weeks. So order one at a time.
So when you order for yourself, you get it at a price less what you would have been paid selling one for you?
No. Let's see how that works. You can set your price. Okay. And incidentally, all the books on Amazon are priced at $14.95. But today only, anyone that would like to buy a book for $12, tax included. That's because you're nice enough to come. So this $14.95, there's a printing cost to every book that's about $5. So Amazon takes that. That's the printing cost. Then they take another $5 because they're the ones that did this and they want to make money. And so basically that leaves, like me, I would get like $4 or $5 off of a sale of a $15 book. The ebooks are $2.99, the new ones. The older ones, I put them up at 99 cents. Whatever. Just like people that read it. And so they take their cut of that, whatever. And it's not about the money. Do you know what I mean? For me, it was like, this is good for me in retirement. Keeps my brain cells working. I'm thinking and trying to sort things out. And I have fun with it. Even though there are a lot of times when I question what the heck I'm doing. Putting myself through this again and again. But what I'll do now, I'll take a good long break. I usually would write over the winter. I'll start in November. I was telling someone I was in a doctor's office recently just to check out. And the doctor, he knew I was writing the books. He said, "Are you still writing?" Yeah, I said, "I just finished my 10th one." He said, "Wow, aren't you running out of ideas?" I said, "Not yet." So we'll see. I know 10's a round number, maybe I'll stop there. But did that answer your question? Print on demand. There's no stockpile like of 1,000 books somewhere. They just if somebody wants to buy one, they'll print one. Yeah. Yes,
You edit your own copy?
I do.
Don't you read over your own mistakes? Why don't you have someone reading behind you?
Like who? Would you do it?
What?
Yeah, you know, like, I could go to Fiverr and say, you know, would you proof my book? Sure, for $500, I'll proof your book. I mean, I could proof your books, you know what I mean? Ellie, I'm better at proofing somebody else's. Actually, my wife reads the books. She never sees a single error. I said, what's the matter? What, you didn't catch that? You didn't see that? No. Like, she reads differently than I do. I'm legally blind in one eye, okay? It's not a big deal. It's like, you know, it's whatever. And I never thought of it as an issue because I read slowly and I remember what I read. What's wrong with that? You know? And, but, you know, when you're reading your own stuff, it's easy to think it's there.
Yeah.
And it's not there. Yeah, it's very humbling. And my wife, well, I don't know, you know, in the first book, Michael Bishop, you know, had his wife having passed away. And I think she took a little offense at that. You know, but I said, you know, it's fiction. Come on, you know, it's fiction. And it's just easier that way, you know, so that he can go home, like to the dog, you know, he doesn't have to go home and deal with the wife and all this other stuff. It was just easier. There's nothing personal. So I don't know if that, you know, when she's reading the books, you know, she does bring it up once in a while. Grace has passed away before the first book, before the first page, and she's gone. Anyway, any other questions? That was a good question. Yeah?
Do you ever write senior sections out of order?
No. I won't move forward until I'm pretty much satisfied with what I've got. And I always wrote like that, even as a student. You know, I wasn't big into revision. You know, I'll move things around and all that stuff. No, I mean, I'm not moving on until this is good, and then I go here next, and then see where that goes. So, no, maybe I should. I don't know, that's what you're trying to say? That I maybe should move things around a little bit. But no, I don't move things around. Plus, it's hard, too. You know, I have to, like, copy and paste and all that stuff. You know, you can make more mistakes that way. Oh, I think my battery just died. I know, it's time to go. That's why. It's perfect.